Well, it's a pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Tony Kakbovbia. He is actually with the Managed Region Solutions Engineering Leader with Avitas. And Avitas, I think, is a venture company of Baker Hughes, right? Yep. Dr. Tony holds a PhD degree in chemical engineering from Manchester University, but I think he also received additional training, particularly with respect to corrosion. I think he boasts more than 3 decades in the oil and gas industry and has worked extensively, not only for Saudi Aramco, but what I think interestingly also with the inspection department in Tehran as an engineering consultant. If I'm not mistaken, he also worked with Shell Canada as a project quality manager. And he's a very prolific inventor, as it turns out, and has published numerous peer-reviewed publications. Thank you for agreeing to talk today, Dr. Tony. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gunther, for the excellent introduction. And thanks everyone for taking some time to share with me today opportunities for digital transformation in the petroleum and mining sector, a sector that is very much at heart to ourselves and to the university. I will start off with a little bit of a safety moment here. Let's all kind of remind ourselves that COVID-19 is still around, and control awareness, whatever the general guidelines are, we still have to pay a little bit of attention to that. Following that, so I will talk about digital transformation and how to get there. Digital transformation framework checklist, what the checklist, what should we be looking out for? I will touch base on a couple of opportunities in both the petroleum sector and the mining sector. They are combined in a joint list of opportunities as they seem to kind of cross-match. We'll look at a few use cases, and I'll make a couple of comments on implementation steps. So digital transformation, one company, Salesforce, calls it the process of using digital technologies to create new or modifying existing business processes. It could also be the culture of the business, and it could be just changing the customer experience. And the goal really is to create value. So making sure that we have more value for the company. 4 areas typically, so the business process or the work processes that are involved in the business. Then there is the business model itself, how the company generates value or how the organization generates value. It also applies to domain, the area of influence. It also applies to cultural and organizational items within the organization. Due to time limitations for this talk, I will focus mostly on the business process aspect of digital transformation. But in the Q&A session, we can talk across just this one sector. So typically, digital transformation involves looking at some of the 4 IR technologies, which may be UAV, advanced analytics, intelligent sensing, industrial Internet of Things, robotics, additive manufacturing or 3D printing. It may be virtual reality or mixed reality. Just taking one of these to solve an identified problem. So you identify a problem and you deploy one of these. If you get a better result than the current experience, you can be said to have digitally transformed that process. And most of the drivers for digital transformation at the current time, 51% of the industry surveyed say just to grow their business, to grow the opportunities available to the business. And it goes on into customer needs, changing what the customer sees when they think of you as a company. And then you can think about a company like Amazon, then you can get a fair idea of what digital transformation looks like. All the way down to some folks just wanting to put a digital experience into the service that they deliver. So what are the drivers? This is coming out of the 2020 Global Innovation Index that was recently published, less than 3 months ago. In 2010, if you look at just on the table to the right-hand side, in 2010, there are 2 things on that chart. On the top side of the chart and the bottom side of the chart. I will look at those. So in 2010, IT services and software sector were accounting for 25% of capital. Here we are talking about capital, where people want to put their money, where people want to invest. So 25% of that capital was going to that sector, and 10% was going to the petroleum and mining sector. Fast forward to 9 years later, the IT sector is attracting almost 38% of the capital people want to put in business. And the amount that goes to the petroleum and mining sector has shrunk to 2%. So what is going on? Why is the money not being put in the petroleum and mining sector? Just a question. It will guide our thoughts. So in US Labor does a productivity index. And between 1987 to 2010, if you look at the chart to your right-hand side again, you will see the auto sector has sort of taken off in terms of productivity, what you can get out of a given set of resources. Whereas the mining sector and the petroleum sector seems to be dropping off since 2013, actually. So again, what is going on? Are we having workers' lack of enthusiasm, or something definitely is showing here that action is required? We look at another chart. This relates to a mining company. Here we're just going to track productivity and to see what's going on and what the metrics this company is measuring. So we look between 2004 and 2013. What we see is that productivity, which is the last line on the chart, is dropping over this period, over this 9-year period. However, the opposite of productivity, a business killer called operating cost, is rising all the time. If you look at that, it's actually risen by about 13 points. So this is one of the sectors we're interested in. This sort of thought forces you to think, I need to innovate. I need to change the way I'm doing my stuff. Another chart of interest, this is coming out of a study done by the Harvard Business Review and published actually roughly 4 years ago in 2016. They sort of measured all the industries, some of the key industries, and tried to look at what they were doing for digital transformation. And all of that were measured against overall implementation of the technology, and how are they using what they have deployed, and what is the labor and asset implication or impact of the deployment. Two things of interest highlighted there for our conversation. In the oil and gas industry, you will see there's been a lot of overall deployment of the technology. However, the usage of the technology seems to be in red, which means there seems to be a lot of interest in the toys themselves, the widgets, the tools, have the fancy technology itself, but not so much in using them to deliver the results. Whereas on the top, if you look at the media, they acquire a lot of technology, they use it, their labor use it, and their assets use it. And I think we are very, very much familiar with that. Hence, we are even able to do this sort of Zoom presentation we are doing today. This is complete usage from adoption to practical utilization to make a change in how a business is done. The mining sector on the other side, overall use, this is in the bottom of the chart now, all red. They aren't acquiring it, they are not using it, labor is not trained on it, assets are not efficiently changed by it. So this is Harvard Business Review comments from that studies. So that's kind of a good thought to lead us to a checklist on, so we know where the two industries stand, and we know something definitely has to be done. So how do we do this? So thinking about getting to digital transformation, I put out here two levels of change. The checklist applying at enterprise level and also applying at the working group level. So at enterprise level, you need to have an enterprise level organization that understands and agrees to the fact that there needs to be digital transformation for the reasons we've talked about, for all of those productivity and industry challenges we talked about prior to now, including capital drift. There need to be a departmental level sponsor. There should also be a workflow level promoter. There should be a process for qualifying a work process on whether this process qualifies to be digitally transformed or not. Additionally, at enterprise level, there should be a toolkit of technologies. So this would be the 4IR technologies, whether it be additive manufacturing, whether it be Internet of Things, whether it be machine learning, whether it be advanced artificial intelligence tools. So all of those are what we call your 4IR tools, and they should be qualified and available to you. You should also have a good list of use cases, things that you know you can deploy to get it done. And all the way down to both the on-prem and your cloud strategy and ability to scale if you do identify successes. On the working group side, clear definition of the problem, success criteria well known, smart KPIs, a good team structure, and involvement of domain SMEs. So what should be the areas we should focus on? And all of these top 5 areas are actually coming also from the first set of slides we looked at. So when you look at it, when a company starts to get challenged, you see productivity drop. So you need to be able to enhance productivity. Reliability of tools also is impacted. Efficiency, the way you get the job done also. Cost saving is also there. We saw that operating cost loss going out of the window. So, and then there are also this safety impact. And in the current environment, environmental transparency. People want to know what is your emission level and what are you doing about it? Are you engaged with respect to climate change? Are you controlling your carbon footprint? That kind of stuff need to be tracked and accurately reported. And it's easier to do that using digital technology or 4IR technology in a transformative format. So let's see some of the opportunities that we think are available. And this list is not all exhaustive. What I did was throw a couple of items out here. But if any group of 3 or 4 sat together, you will come up with a list also that can expand on this. So what we have here is at the top is I have geology and exploration. So exploration, understanding of what the resources are, how we mine it and how we process it, how we drill it, and how we optimize the yield as when we try to process it. And then the integrity of the assets we are using to do the job, planning the maintenance, and also that financial analysis and alternative investment planning. Then the standards that apply to the job itself, all of these are opportunities. And I have indicated there's some potential digital transformation tools, and we have also shown some of the benefits tagged straight back to the work process and the tool. Further down, there are also more items you could do. Enterprise risk. It's also a good thing to manage HR. You should be interested in the retention and compensation and reward of the personnel. Even in fire prevention and security offers opportunities for digital transformation. One of the jobs done by Deloitte does study how this can be sort of stacked in a mining environment. And in this sort of environment, right on top is your transformation should enhance your decision making. So if you were taking off a digital oil field or a digital mine, this may involve remote operations, lots of data analytics going on, and all of that data is simplifying how decision is made. So basically data-driven decision making. And some of the other things you could change the platforms you are using, the connectivity of those platforms, and all of the heavy equipment and sensors that are used, including the wearables for the employee in the field. Currently, in some of the mines, there are opportunities to use even automated vehicles for moving products all around the field. And a survey does show that of most of the managers spoken to, 69% of these are looking at how to manage their remote operations and provide that sort of connectivity and ease of decision making. So what should be the next action? So if I was looking at doing digital transformation of my organization, the first part of it would be to do a critical assessment of all existing workflows and seek opportunities where there is either leakage or I'm incurring losses, and see what a disruptive technology could do and whether existing workflow can be improved just by changing the way the work is done. the general approach is better to start off with the chronic areas of challenge as low-hanging fruit. It's quite important to start with your low-hanging fruit because you really want to build confidence early and you want to get folks engaged and excited about what is being done. And it's also a good idea to start in the core areas of the business. Thereafter, involve the engineering and how the asset is managed across its life cycle. At the back of one's mind should be something that looks like a digital oil field or a digital mine. So let's see a couple of use cases where these have been done. Prior to getting there, one of the folks, Andrew Lane, did a couple of work for Deloitte, did some of that survey for Deloitte. And his comments generally was kind of interesting. And the comment was to leverage the power of digital transformation. We should not get caught up in the toys. And if you see that from what we saw in the oil and gas sector, there seems to be a lot of acquisition of the toys and not thinking beyond that to how the toy actually does change the work that is done and creates value. So that is something to bear in mind. Let's not get carried away by it. It's not just a toy, but we need to see the gains. We start off with the exploration, the inspection and surveys, part of what is possible. So in mining, generally, we could basically digitize how that exploration is done. This is one of the easiest ones to sort of grasp. You put a drone in there, you can get accurate data, you can survey a large area, you can infuse that data across the facility, you can do machine learning on it, you can predict outcomes, and you can scale it. So this is great. Another example in the oil field, this relates to, again, using aerial digital tool. We go from somewhere in 2018 where a facility is able to look at 65 upstream pads, well pads. By 2019, they were able to do much more than that, from 65 to 220, almost threefold. And by 2020, they were doing multiple of that, just by improving and engaging digitally. One of the early and straightforward example also is the digital outcrop for mines. So you can break this workflow into 3 phases. The phase 1 includes where you gather the data. In phase 2, you gather your surface data, you gather your subsurface data, you integrate all of those. And in phase 3, you can interpret whether a certain area has the sort of minerals you are looking for or not, and whether you should actually be spending more money in continuing to mine in that area. So useful information could be done very quickly, and you could turn a job that was taking 45 days to 60 days to something that could be done in a matter of days. Another area of using industrial Internet of Things, you have all of these sensors that are basically sensing any typical emission you are interested in. We can take here, it could be H2S, but it could also be methane. You fix all of these sensors, you generate a digital mesh, which sits above the asset like an umbrella. And underneath that, you measure everything of interest to you. And some of those also can be expanded. They could be permanent sensors. And right in the bottom of the left-hand side, you can see what can be done with thermal imaging. So here, infrared cameras can basically show you what is inside the fluid and the level of content of the fluid remotely. And all of that can be transferred to a point where someone can make a decision. And right on top of that also, you can see environmental data can be overlaid on that as well. Prior to any one of those flights, for machine learning purposes, you can also pre-program all of that. So you put a 3D format on it, you know exactly where you went, source of the leak, what is the quantity, and from what equipment. A good part of digital transformation is generating a digital twin. So across your assets, if you want a manager that is remotely to be able to look at the asset, he needs to be able to look at a digital twin of this asset. So when someone in the field points at the asset, they can both be seeing the same picture. So digital twinning is part of that game. So you digital twin, you have it in 3D CAD model, and you can put robots and you can localize any information out of that. You can tag it, you can stamp it, This can be noticeable by anyone, and folks using wearable devices can also read into that. You can measure it, you can see deterioration, and all of that can go on in a virtual circle of digital monitoring of the asset. Another way to do that, if you were looking at a digital oil field, is all of that data needs to be available from a solution center or some decision maker's desktop. One of the easiest ways to do it is this global network of real-time monitoring, from data collection and aggregation to transmission, to availability and visualization of that data, all 24/7. So decision making is fast, and all of the analytics is in the bottom of that hood. So what the decision maker sees is not the raw data, but is the data that has been sort of analyzed and trended with some prediction and some recommendation for straightforward decision making. Some of the visualization we're talking about, so raw data is gathered, but the machine learning tool itself can generate a format that is easy to understand and easy to make a decision out of based on the decision maker's preference. So the machine learning doesn't design the preference, the decision maker designs the preference. So that may be the enterprise manager, it could be the asset integrity manager, the guy who makes the decision on whether to repair or to continue to run or to retire the equipment, or it could be the inspector's perspective, but they will all come out in various reports. These are some of the other outputs that are available. So you can have a report that looks like this. You have clear-cut understanding of what is above ground and what is underground. So you have a continuous integrated perspective of your resources, subsurface and above ground. So what will be recommendations generally based on what we've heard so far for implementation? If I was thinking of implementing a digitally transformed organization today, what should be my sort of general steps? So I put out here 9 steps. Some folks may have more, but some of the things that we have seen worked for some of the use cases we have deployed is to always start small. So when you go through the process of identifying a work process or a challenge that is costing money, or that is creating an inefficient situation, or that is unreliable, or that is unsafe. Once that has been decided, we know that is large across the organization, but we are not going to tackle all of it across the organization one time. We will select a small portion of it, the portion of it that has the most data, and that is easier for us to manipulate and work around and optimize as the low-hanging fruit for the job itself. That needs to be scoped. At that point, the deliverables and the objectives have to be very clear. So if we say this work process is taking us 45 days, so the objective needs to be clear to us. Are we trying to reduce it to 10 days, or are we trying to reduce how we do it? So that whole objective needs to be clear. And once the objective is clear, the success criteria needs to be defined and discussed among all team members around a SMART format, meaning that it has to be specific and it should be measurable by any of the parties that are involved and achievable within the time frame that has been selected for the job itself, related to the job, and is time-based. So we tie it around a specific time to deliver it. So once we've agreed on that success criteria, the next challenge is look at the specific challenge itself. Who knows the job? Who is the subject matter expert on this job? Transformation is not going to be successful without having a domain knowledge in the core of the team, because that domain knowledge is going to very clearly know what success looks like. And they are also going to know whether you were really very close to success and whether a little bit of tweaking will actually make a big difference. Without domain knowledge SME on the desk, you have probably thrown away half your likelihood or chance of succeeding. The next thing, the 6th item here, is to also align it with a business objective. So digital transformation should not be for digital transformation's sake. There should be some relationship between the transformation and the business goals. And does it create cost saving? Does it reduce operating costs? Does it make an existing work safer to do? Does it increase productivity of the employees? So that kind of thing needs to be aligned. And you do that by getting a management sign-off on the proposal and the success criteria. So you set a timeline to deliver your goals and whatever the overall deliverables are and what are the milestone deliverables. So your progress deliverables, not just the big deliverable, but what are we expecting in the weekly time frame, bi-weekly time frame, monthly time frame to the end of the project. So we agree on what the progress meetings will be and what the milestones will be in each of those milestones. Establish an agreement on how it's going to be managed, and then you kick off the process. We have seen this work for multiple of the use cases that we have talked about above and some of the other ones that we currently are working on. So with that, I will say thank you very much, and I will take questions at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. Do we have any questions from the audience? If so, please use the raise your hand feature. Maybe I can call dibs on this one. Dr. Tony, can you comment a little bit on blockchain technology? I read a couple of reports, in Accenture or so, that this is an up-and-coming thing for the oil and gas industry. Have you been looking into this blockchain?
So when I'm going to come back to that big list that we put out of opportunities. So the blockchain itself is not something that the industry has looked at a lot, but it actually does have applicability around some of the items and in here around the commodity market analysis and the financial analysis part of the work that is done in this industry. So I think at the current time, when you look at the low level of deployment of digital transformation, the focus currently seems to be more around the core services, the asset management, the engineering function, and not so much around the commodity market analysis or the financial engineering part of it, where the blockchain seems to have, does make a big impact. That would be my comment on that, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Tony.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Tony. This is Mohammed from Saudi Aramco.
Okay, thank you.
I just got a question, Dr. Tony, for the environmental applications or solutions that's being developed by Baker Hughes nowadays.
Yeah.
You've seen that there is kind of solution that will do monitoring for the facilities. So we normally monitor our, or we normally report our performance or environmental performance through an annual basis, through a longer process where we have to hire a contractor. He will come and conduct some survey to measure the leaks and so on and so forth. So my question, with those solutions now developed with Baker Hughes, is there any online solution that can monitor the leaks for on the assets?
Okay, so that is the slide I came to. This is an environmental solution that is on stream 24/7. And this is a 4IR technology that is actually based on an Internet of Things sensors. So these sensors, if you look at the facility on the slide, there are roughly 7 sensors installed in this facility. And the location between the sensors will be selected to ensure that you have continuous coverage and the mesh is connected. So, and this is replacing what you described. So when we talked about digital transformation, so I want to do a survey, environmental, so identify my environmental emission. It may be methane, it may be H2S, or maybe some other greenhouse gas that I want to monitor. And once you've defined that, the current practice is that we go out there, we do the survey sometimes once a year. And if you are in one of the industrial cities of Jubail or Yambu, you are mandated to do it twice a year. So that is cumbersome, and there is no relationship between that survey and what is going on a day-to-day basis, because emission is occurring every day, but the survey is done only one day of the year. So to come around that, what you are saying is a solution that provides actually a continuous trend, so 24/7, 365 days of the year. Because what the industry is saying, or what the market is saying, is that I need more transparency on your emissions. Not take a survey. Don't take a snapshot of one day and tell me this is my emission. So, Mohammed, you are right. What you are saying is a digitally transformed environmental monitoring tool that provides the transparency that both management, I would say all stakeholders are looking for. So you are looking for it. You want to report accurately what your emission levels are. That you didn't go there to monitor on a day you thought it was a nice day. Yeah. So this is sort of what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But we just wanted to know if this solution has been deployed elsewhere, because the plants there is high points, low points. So we need to ensure that this solutions will be able to reach out to all these low and high points and congested area in the plants.
My only comment to that would be, I would just say yes. And we can take it offline so that we don't, it doesn't become a promo, but I can take it offline and I will share information with you. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions at this point? Should there be any other questions coming up, Dr. Tony has agreed you can send email to me and I forward it to Dr. Tony, or maybe actually you can email Dr. Tony directly. I think, thanks a lot, Dr. Tony, for giving a great seminar to us. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.